Good morning, everyone. Today I'm here to announce the current results of Project Déjà Vu on behalf of the Toronto Police Service's Financial Crimes Unit and to seek the public's help in this ongoing investigation. As a result of the hard work of our officers and our law enforcement partners and our other government agencies, 12 people have been arrested and 102 charges laid in this large-scale synthetic identity credit fraud scheme. Synthetic identity fraud is a form of financial fraud in which fictional personal information is used to open accounts with banks, financial institutions, or other businesses. But this isn't just about fraud. Accounts obtained under synthetic identities are known to facilitate other serious criminal offenses, including the laundering of proceeds derived from human trafficking, drug trafficking, and armed robbery, among other serious crimes. Project Déjà Vu was initiated by Toronto Police in October 2022, following a report from a financial institution who located several synthetic accounts, most of which had been opened by a single person who had previously worked on behalf of the company. The perpetrators of this scheme, which began in 2016, are alleged to have created more than 680 unique synthetic identities, many of which were used to apply for and open hundreds of bank accounts and credit accounts at various banks and financial institutions across Ontario. The fraudulently obtained credit accounts were then drawn upon by way of in-store and online purchases, cash withdrawals, or electric fund transfers. In many cases, fraudulent payments were made into the credit account to allow them to be drawn beyond their defined limits. To date, this scheme has resulted in confirmed losses of approximately $4 million. Toronto Police have executed more than 20 search warrants and 80 production orders to investigate this matter and to trace the flow of proceeds of crime generated by these synthetic identity frauds. Through the search warrants, TPS has also located and seized several dozen synthetic identity documents and electronic templates to create false identifications and false documents. Hundreds of payment cards, such as debit cards, credit cards, and charge cards, associated to bank or credit accounts obtained under synthetic identities, and approximately $300,000 in Canadian and foreign cash seized as proceeds of crime. Our work here isn't done. Excuse me. We believe there are other people who were complicit in this scheme, and we're working to identify them. We also believe there may be additional incidents and victims. The images of the arrested people are on the screen beside me, and have been published in a news release issued by the Toronto Police Service. Investigators want to speak with anyone who has information related to this investigation, including any businesses that were approached by any of the arrested persons for the purposes of applying for or opening any accounts, example, store accounts or credit accounts. Any persons or businesses who performed any home renovation for any of the arrested persons, and any persons who have purchased items, particularly appliances, electronics, and/or automotive parts from any of the arrested persons. These transactions may have been facilitated through an online buy and sell platform. To conclude, the Toronto Police Service would like to thank our law enforcement partners and other government agencies for their assistance during this investigation. They include the Canada Revenue Agency, the Financial Transactions and Reports Analysis Centre of Canada, also known as FinTrack, the Halton Regional Police Service, the Ontario Ministry of Finance, the Ontario Ministry of Transportation, Peel Regional Police, Service Canada, and the Waterloo Regional Police Service. I'd also like to thank members of the Toronto Police Service, and in particular, my fellow members of the Financial Crimes Unit for their diligent work on this project. Thank you, and I'll take any questions.
You mentioned that it was a report from a financial institution. That's how you guys got tipped off on this in 2022. Can you tell us which financial institution, and did this impact multiple, or was it just kind of one?
No, we don't want to identify the specific institution. The investigation concluded with identifying that most of the financial institutions were victimized by this scheme.
So what was the purpose of this? Were they opening up multiple accounts, withdrawing the funds, using those funds for whatever, and then declaring bankruptcy, or what was going on?
No, if you think about it, synthetic identities can be used to create essentially piggy banks for them. They're applying for credit cards, they're applying for lines of credit, they're opening bank accounts in which they can funnel money in and out of. So they're essentially applying for unlimited amounts of credit in fictional synthetic names.
Keeping the transfer of funds under $30,000 or so to not raise red flags?
Yeah, I mean, the way they were doing it specifically, I can't get into. But yeah, they had their methods in which they tried to minimize the red flags. Obviously, they weren't entirely successful in that.
In terms of the website that they were using to buy, sell, trade, do you have any, can you mention which website or which platform it was?
No, again, I don't want to specify any specific agencies or online selling platforms. And it doesn't really matter. It could, if it wasn't one, it could be used the same way in another.
Were they using multiple platforms?
I believe, I don't know the specifics of that, to be fair.
Going back to the ID pictures, what were those IDs? Were they, and describe them, were they counterfeit IDs, or were they real IDs with fake names, or?
Right. No, they're fraudulently manufactured identifications, Ontario driver's licenses, permanent residence cards. So they're fraudulently manufactured. Multiple names, I think you saw, multiple cards have the same face, different names, and those names are synthetic. Those are people who do not exist. So you don't have people complaining about your identity being lost or utilized.
Okay, then when I look at my driver's license, there's a bunch of different security measures on there, including holographic.
Yep.
And numbers that once they're scanned, they're confirmed electronically. Were those available to be scanned and confirmed electronically?
I mean, they're using them either online or in person in financial institutions and stuff like that. I can't speak to the specific security measures that those institutions have, but essentially, fraudulent identification can be used to open the accounts.
And they're pretty convincing. Is that not the banks or financial institutions' responsibility to make sure their account's not being opened by a fake piece of ID? We're well past that as far as, are they?
Yeah, certainly it's in the bank's best interest to do that, and all financial institutions have security parameters in place in order to minimize the damages to them. The fraudsters are really smart. They're advancing with technology. The identification is very convincing. It often does get caught at the financial institutions, but it doesn't always get caught.
Is the banks kind of not keeping their security measures up high enough, because all ID is now electronically confirmed?
Right. Well, I can't speak to the individual security parameters of the banks.
They're doing their best. Oh, then going back to the, who's paying for these frauds? Is it, obviously, somehow it always trickles down to the normal person on the street, but are people losing their houses as a result of the fraud?
No, because the identifications used are synthetic. They're fictitious. They're not real people. Ultimately, the damages are being paid by the complainants, which are the financial institutions, the credit agencies. So they're the ones losing the money. That's why they're very, it's in their best interest to increase their security.
I was reading that oftentimes with these synthetic ID crimes that they will take real identification pieces, like a SIN or something, and then mix it to make it fraudulent. Is that what happened here, or are these totally all made up and random from the beginning?
These are completely made up and random right from the beginning. They're completely synthetic. But yes, there are instances of that in other investigations where it's kind of a hybrid mix of real people versus synthetic. In this case, though, 100% synthetic.
Would you consider that to be unusual?
No. No.
I'm confused when someone walks into a financial institution with a piece of ID, a social insurance number, a driver's license. Isn't that checked against some government, record somewhere else, or is it just accepted? Well, it looks like right, so it must be real.
Yeah, again, I don't know. I can't speak to the specific manner in which the accounts are opened in the banks. Clearly, convincing identification is sufficient.
Is it frustrating for you guys who put resources towards this? It costs taxpayer money. I know you're getting paid to do it, but sure. Is it frustrating you don't see better measures?
I mean, we deal with, we get 50 fraud reports a day in our office. Fraud is rampant and at epidemic levels right now. So frustrated, I don't know if that's the right word. We're aware of it. In this case, the fact that the complainants and victims were not real people, it somewhat makes it better for us type thing, because we see the damages that fraud wreaks on individuals. But fraud is consistently evolving. The fraudsters are always at the forefront of whatever technology there is. It's not going away, and we'll continue to fight it.
Last question.
You mentioned there's other victims still that you're concerned about, and how many victims there are, and the type of activity this was impacting. And I'll just, since this last question, I'll just follow up with this. To clarify, do you believe this scam has been going on since 2016 with these individuals, and are they part of the organized crime?
I think that was in effect 6 questions, but yeah, now I've forgotten the first 5. In terms of more victims, we assume there are more victims just because of the number of the identities. There's people that had interactions with these people, whether it was through renovating their homes or it was selling them product online. So we always assume, just the sheer number of it, that there are more victims out there. We encourage any of them to reach out to us if they see the faces and the names and they recognize that they've been victimized.
Just to clarify, the second part of my long-winded question.
Sure.
This group, have they been conducting this scheme since 2016? Is that what it's believed, and are they part of like an organized crime?
Right. Yeah, the investigation dates back to 2016. It's still ongoing. The charges that have been laid are those laid now that we have the grounds to lay. Whether there are more charges laid in the future in regards to a criminal organization or not remains to be seen.
More victims, just to be back on, you mean like financial institutions, businesses, not people?
Primarily, yes, exactly. But it may have been people who have done services for these people and been paid with these fictitious accounts, renovations, buying products, that type of thing as well. Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much for coming.